Well, let's see. We are broadcasting here, but I'm caught off guard. Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Well, today it's just you and I again, Ben. I think our friend Ed said that he was hurtling through the French countryside on a highway of some sort. So I assume that's good news. I don't know, but it sounds like it would be fun.
Yeah, drive safely, Ed, wherever you are.
That's right. And so I thought there hasn't been a tremendous amount of the type of news we like to comment on, but Ed, aforementioned hurtling through the countryside, he came across two things that he sent over that I think there's some good commentary to be had on that. One of them is a report from GigaOM from Justin, who if you follow his stuff, he's Justin. I don't actually know if it's Warren or Warren. How would you pronounce Warren?
Warren, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just like, I'm aware that I'm and I don't mean this to be self-aggrandizing. One of those people who, well, this may not be true anymore after all these years of podcasting, but one of these people who more or less reads a lot more than I talk. And so like every now and then I'll encounter something and I'm like, I know how I pronounce that in my head, but I don't actually know how it's pronounced. And you might have encountered these people a lot. Tech people are a lot like that, where they.
Yeah, what's going on with your name? Because you've got the little tick over your E, and I don't know what that means. Am I supposed to do something with that?
It just means instead of saying coat, you say cote. It means that's how I was brought up, and I'm pretty sure that's another failing of mine. Is at some point in learning, I assume other ones do this, and I'm pretty sure y'all over there in the UK would do this. But when you learn English at some point, they give you this lesson where you've got all these upside down letters and weird things and diacriticals, and they're trying to teach you like how to pronounce things and how to describe them. And I think I just must have been hit in the head at the end of that because I don't remember any of it. Like,
I think I was too busy chewing the crayons, to be honest. Yeah,
that's probably what was happening with me as well. Anyways,
but there's a restaurant near Old Street.
Yes,
the Old Street office is called Cote.
Exactly,
and might have the same thing. I don't remember.
It does, but it has a little hat on the O, which again I don't know what that is or what that implies about what you're supposed to say. But funny you should mention that. I was in a bunch of meetings earlier this week, and there was someone who she said her maiden name was Cote, and so when she saw my name there, she was kind of shocked. Also, was in Austin, which is of all things, where I'm from.
The Austin Cotes.
Yeah. And she told me, so we were talking about it and I said, yeah, there's also like a chain over in the UK that's called Cote something. And like what I've learned over the years in Twitter is that people love going there for brunch. Like, usually sometimes on the weekend, I'll get like I'll get a tweet because they'll say @Cote. And it'll be like, oh, lovely meal, with Josie and the fellows, delicious mimosas or something like that. And I usually write back and I'm like, oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And,
please come again.
That's right. I think one time someone was complaining and I was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But,
but it's not me.
Yeah, anyways.
It's just opposite the British Library, and
oh really? Huh.
Yeah, there's no, not British Library. The name escapes me now, but there's a Banksy, like literally 100 meters away from that place.
Yeah, well, it's definitely
Barbican Theatre and Barbican Library.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot of them. I see them very frequently when I'm over there. Anyways, now that I've made a big to-do about it, Justin Warren, he's got a delightful. You would like his. He's got a consultancy. You should go check it out. Pivot 9, and if you sign up for his newsletter, so not only does he apparently write up analyses of reports on the Kubernetes landscape, he also has like kind of a consultancy helping people with their tech marketing. So you can go and read his. It's a very common thing with boutique analyst firms or whatever. Boutique is always such a funny word, right? Like it just means small. But he has a lot to say about how one would do tech marketing in his newsletter, which is fun.
Right.
Anyhow,
I'm signing up as we speak.
There we go.
Look out for
There's a I expect him to recommend my newsletter now, which is available at newsletter.cote.io. I'm gonna drive some more subs, right? Subs.
Yep.
Click and subscribe. Anyways,
don't be like subscribe.
So he put out a Kubernetes report, and now there's actually he's got a very lengthy ranking of all of the vendors, as I would say, and the word choice there is the point that I wanted to bring up. And also, I guess the GigaOM, they don't have a Magic Quadrant nor a Wave, but they have a radar report, which is a little bit like the I don't know it that well, I must admit. It's a little bit like the ThoughtWorks radar, which means it's circular. And it has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different, and again, I'll get to the word Kubernetes vendors you can choose from. But I think what's you can go read it, you can find it. I think one of the vendors has licensed it. You can check it out, and it has a good summary of each of them. But the thing I wanted to bring up is that he called this, it's the radar for managed Kubernetes, right? And so I'm not going to be Socrates here and ask you questions. I'll just, what's the opposite of Socrates? Like just a lecture?
Football tees? I don't know.
Hey, wow. That's you're not gonna come across that kind of wit in the Agora. They would run you out and throw empty olive oil bottles at you.
Come on, that was very Ted Lasso. I'm on trend, aren't I?
Oh no, I just meant that those Agoriacs, they I don't think they were into clever puns and rhetoricians. They were very against rhetoric and wordplay. They in fact, wasn't it Socrates who was like, we need to kill all the poets? He was very anti-poet, if I remember. And then yikes. I think Plato later came in and is like, let's kind of chill it with being against the poets. Anyway, there's your Cote's philosophy corner for this episode.
I love Play-Doh almost as much as crayons.
There you go again.
On a roll.
So when I see the word managed, I think that must mean like a public cloud, right? Like a managed service, which someone else running it. But because he includes OpenShift and Platform 9 and our very own VMware Tanzu, and talks about hybrid and multi-cloud stuff, it was making me, and I'm pretty sure he means like whether you run it on your own or not. And I think I tried to go back and reread this, and the point I'm trying to make here will be moot if I'm wrong, which is the best kind of point to try to make. Will be moot if it won't really matter if I'm wrong, but I think what he's saying is just like, not building your own Kubernetes. Just like if you were to get a distro or run it in a public cloud, which I think is like a category that needs to exist. Right? And again, the category is, I am not building it on my own. I might run it on my own, but I'm not in charge of assembling it together, right?
Yeah.
Because the distinguish between running Kubernetes, using a Kubernetes service, one of your KSs in the big public clouds, versus like running a Kubernetes on your own infrastructure, like those are also two very different things. And like comparing the two of them like drags on all sorts of other conversations you need to have. So kind of contradicting what I was just saying, like it's almost like I haven't really thought this out, as you can tell, but here's an analogy, and maybe you can help me out here, Ben. You remember 3-4 years ago when we went through one of those phases in the IT world where we were all obsessed with the developer. Everyone was talking about how important developers were. And this was right around also when Kubernetes was like, you're like, ooh, that horse kind of pulled ahead over there. What's going on? And like the clever thing to do that you would do if you were Socrates was to be like, but which type of developer? And then you're like, oh no, we're in the soup now. Like now we're getting off and distracted. the point there being that like people would say like, oh, there's not just one type of developer. There's what, and to cut to the chase, most of the time, I think, and this is still the case, when people say developer, most of the time, what most people mean is application developer, right? A developer who is, obviously screen readers and other things aside, not aside, but like considered, if you'll pardon the joke, developers who move pixels on the screen, right? Like that's, I think, what most people have in mind versus like, embedded developers who work on like when you press the accelerator in your car goes, and, systems developers who work on chips, and then our favorite platform developers, blah, 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 right? And so it also seems like that's why I started thinking about, Justin's like lumping together of all these Kubernetes things is like, I think it's increasingly important when people talk about Kubernetes to be like, but which type of Kubernetes, right? Because all of the, a lot of like the benefits and the problems that you're going to have with running your own Kubernetes, running Kubernetes on your own, let me phrase that, are going to be different than if you're just using a Kubernetes that is run for you in the public cloud, right? And they're kind of like, there's increasingly not so much nuance between them. Like it's pretty obvious that they're very different things. So like, for example, if you're running one of the KSs, any KS will do in one of the three clouds or whatever, in a public cloud, like it's a lot easier. Like there's like a whole lot of, I mean, it's public cloud. So there's just like a whole lot of stuff you don't have to do. Like you don't need to have, yeah. And not only with installing and upgrading Kubernetes, but also like you don't need to schedule a meeting with the networking team. And you don't really need to like, I was talking about this with one of our coworkers. There's stuff you need to do. It doesn't go away, but it's a lot different than like, talking to the networking team in your own data center for your own on-premises stuff, right? Like, yeah. And definitely, there's even like another contemporaneous topic that comes up, I think, in the public cloud Kubernetes things, where like it's a lot easier to get runaway costs in that situation than in on premises, right? Like because of just the nature of how public cloud works, like, I think it's a little cynical to say they're happy to let you overspend, but it's more just like, yeah, that's just the way it is. If you want limitless consumption possibility as a feature, that's exactly what you'll get.
Limitless billing.
Yeah. Whereas if you're running it on your own, eventually you'll just hit the physical limitation of your computers, right? Like you won't.
Yeah, although you'll burn money in different ways, won't you? Like,
sure.
I think a lot of folks underestimate the overheads involved in creating a good basic platform.
Right? No, totally. I mean, I think it's beyond like CapEx, OpEx stuff that we were so enamored of in like 2009. But like, no, I agree with you completely. Like, I think maybe there are definitely wasted money and runaway costs. It just like happens a lot slower and a lot more like not unexpectedly, but I think the point you're making, I cut you off, is that like you'll end up spending a lot more money on like people and like, dealing with it than if you automate that stuff. But so you can end up, let me see if I can phrase this. You can end up being forced to spend more money than you want because you've made this decision and now you need to staff it and now you need to take care of it, even though you didn't anticipate those. Whereas in the public cloud, you can end up accidentally spending a lot more money than you wanted to because you didn't even know that would happen.
Or you end up accepting a lower quality outcome, or whereas in the cloud you might have a extremely high quality outcome, but you're not using all the features. So swings and
and then also just to be clear about it, right? Like, I mean, I think all these things we're talking about are risks, not certainties, right? Like it's I've encountered a lot of like markety like you should like our stuff versus someone else's stuff recently. And like, I've realized that's something that like is people always forget about is like, yeah, I mean, everything we're talking about has like a 1 to 5% chance of happening. So what we're talking about is just you've got a different set of risks that you need to manage. Anyhow, I've a bit of lost track of what we were talking about here, but that's probably a good sign. But yeah, so like I'm really like fascinated in this like new grouping of types of Kubernetes is Kubernetes, whatever it may be. We'll have to see how Greek is pluralized. But like because I think increasingly we need that in people who are in the kind of business we're in. We need that kind of distinction because like I think a lot of the discussion about, for example, platform engineering, like it's very unclear if a platform engineer is in charge of building, running, and maintaining Kubernetes, or if they're just in charge of kind of configuring it and running their platform on top of it, right? Which is very different things. And like, you know, hopefully it's not the first, because it's completely unrealistic that you could both own Kubernetes and own the platform.
Yeah,
right?
I think they're very different problems. Yeah, the platform engineering for me is all about, you know, the customer is the developer, and you're helping them by creating automations that fit into the way that they work and enhance the way that they work and save time in the way that they work. But that's a very different problem space to, can I run and manage Kubernetes, upgrade Kubernetes, make sure it's you know, integrated well, and make sure that we're capturing all the information that's coming in about Kubernetes all the time, all the changes, all the, you know, the churn that happens in that particular space. That's a whole different set of problems for a whole different character, you know, role, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, and there's no way that like a team of people would have enough time in their lives to handle that. Like they would burn out really quickly and do a terrible job at all of it.
Yeah, or you know, you need to be able to look around yourself and say, actually, this is well staffed and it's well funded. Because if it's not, then the consequences are in the quality side, aren't they? And you won't achieve what you want to achieve. So
totally. Right. And so like that's an example. So platform engineering is an example of where you need this distinction of what type of Kubernetes you're talking about, right? Because like the kind of shallow discussion of platform engineering that, like, you know, even I have had, even I, as if I'm some sort of like saintly person who avoids like wrong talk all the time.
Saint Cote of Texas.
Yeah, let me go polish off my rhetorician's halo that I've got in my back pocket here. But like, you know, I would assume that most of the people talking about platform engineering are probably running on the public KSs, right? Like if they're running something on Kubernetes and they're talking about how to improve Kubernetes with platform engineering, which includes, you know, like getting backstage set up and but getting build pipelines or supply chains, if you prefer, and like all that middleware and developer tooling. Like it would be shocking if they are also not only selecting a Kubernetes distro to get up and running and talking with all your networking people to make sure that works, and then maintaining it and upgrading it, and also making sure that it runs and they set all the policies. But even worse, if they're DIY building it themselves, like that would just be bonkers. And then that further implies that, like, if I guess this is inferring. This is what I've learned from ChatGPT is you say like, I'm just a human or a large language model. I don't know, but I can infer. And then you're off to the races. It's great. Just infer. So what you can do is you can just tell it straight away, infer. And isn't that what Captain Kirk would always do? Is he would say speculate. Him and Kirk, you'd have to tell the computer in the Vulcan, him and Picard.
Oh, really? Oh, I haven't seen this for a long time, so I don't know.
I guess Picard would have to tell Data. He would have to command them to, like, you know, don't give me these disclaimers, just speculate. Anyways. That's there's an equivalent, and since you're such a big Star Wars fan, remember when Han Solo keeps saying he doesn't like numbers? That's the equivalent of saying speculate to C-3PO. Just like
Never tell me the odds.
That's right.
Never.
Anyhow, so that would imply that if you're doing like on-premises cloud native stuff, right? It's highly likely that you have a whole separate team of people or roles and responsibilities that manage your Kubernetes stuff, because it would just be like insanely impossible otherwise, or something else.
Let's crowdsource this. Listeners, you tell us. Get in touch.
Exactly.
Tell us what you think. Are you doing it? How do you do it? Do you have lots of sort of your own data center with a whole bunch of Kubernetes in it, and you still have platform engineers and are still building a platform in a particular way? Or is there a survey out there that you've seen? Have you seen a survey that already had some data on this that told us, what the split might be between platform engineering, public cloud, platform engineering, private cloud, data center cloud?
Yeah.
You tell us, right?
I should start asking that in talks that I give. I have a talk coming up at PlatformCon, the online thing, which probably means there'll be a big audience. And I won't remember to do this, but that would be a fun poll to ask people while I'm giving it, is like which KS they have. Do they have my KS or one of the GA KSs? I guess Amazon is EKS, right? So you don't have two A's.
Yeah, GKE is a KE, not a KS. But yeah.
Too many Ks.
Too many they've all got K.
Highly related. The other one I just wanted to go on briefly, and I think you can also. I think Humanitech licensed this one, so you can go download it if you want. But
they'll be in the show notes, right?
Exactly, over at tanzutalk.com. But they, I think they commissioned a Forrester survey, and it was basically a bunch of questions about platform engineering tools and initiatives, and just. I think there's two things I wanted to highlight. Well, I guess three things. Like the first comment on it is that if you this is an example of when you encounter charts like this, you have to like put in some extra effort to find value in them. And I don't mean that to be like throwing shade or some offhanded thing, but more of an instructional thing. Because when I looked at it at first, I was like, all of these answers are either 38%. Or 48%. They're all in this range. So like if I were to say like I surveyed 100 people about what their favorite type of sandwich is, and like you had 5 types of sandwiches, I can't do math that fast. And therefore like you had 5 types of sandwiches, and each sandwich was rated somewhere between like 25 and 35% of people said they liked it. You would be like, well, I guess people like everything. Like there's no like obvious winner. There's no like you don't have like 80% for pastrami on rye, like with melted Swiss cheese and horse, sauerkraut on top, which is clearly the best sandwich there is. Maybe with some.
For what outcome?
That's right.
Early death.
This is the hedonism sandwich index, I think.
I see. All right, so it depends which outcome you're measuring. Right.
Anyway, so this is kind of like everyone likes. There is no outstanding sandwich type of chart if you look at it. But what's instructive to look at is there's one question in particular that's like, what benefits have you achieved by like addressing and improving developer experience? Which like, developer experience is a fun word, but I just rewrite it in my head as like productivity. Right? Like just better tools for developers so they can do a better job. And there's a certain amount to it of just like also developers being happy and having less cognitive load and like, enjoying life more. Awesome. Right. But like productivity is a little more like tangible to me. And so you look at that chart and you've got like, there is no outstanding sandwich chart. However, that's a misreading of the question, which is the way when I look at that chart, what I realize is that, when you improve developer productivity or developer experience, everything gets better, right? So like there's not only one thing that gets better, but all of these different things have a high chance of improving and getting better, which is great. Like that's a great thing you want to know about developer experience, because investing in a developer experience is, I always mix this up, we would call it a non-functional requirement, which is it doesn't move pixels on the screen or introduce new features. So it has no, well, look at all these fancy terms I'm trying to use. It has no first order business value, right? Like, so like for example, if we had if the team of developers says in this 1 to 4 week iteration, we're going to rewrite how we do our builds, and then the product manager in the business is going to say, so what new feature are you going to release? And the developer would say nothing, and then the business person would say, how about you keep using the same build and add that new feature I need to make more money? So, however, so you get in these kind of discussions, whereas like what you have with a result like this is you show like, no, look, it actually does increase customer experience and business profitability and all these other things, right? In the same way, like the analogy that I use now, that I have in my head nowadays, is like, if you were to go to a manufacturer and if you were to say, hey, business wise, if we made your factory run better, you would get that makes you more money, right? And they would say, yes, because I'm not insane. I know how a manufacturing business works. Whereas like, I don't think we quite have that ingrained in us so much in the software world. We don't have like an intuitive, no doubt understanding that if you improve how the tools and the process that developers use, that it will result in a better business. Because also that's not always the case as well, since we're not a factory.
And I like in this report how they're using and reusing this phrase that's coming up more and more, the idea of an internal developer platform, so it's not just about the platform engineering, but it's also about the people who benefit from it.
Yeah. I think
that's good.
Yeah. You've actually fixed a word choice problem. Let's see. Do they actually say IDP is an internal developer platform, or did they say portal?
No, platform. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Because originally IDP is like a portal, internal developer portal, and
no, they're going. I think they mean it as a platform. So not just covering the sort of the GUI sort of aspects of can I see what's going on around me, but more but also in addition to that, the supply chain.
And so that's what I like about that is as I'm always very open and sharing. I think internal developer portal is one of the worst names we've had in a long time. Like just because like the word portal, maybe I haven't done a survey with the Generation Z or whatever, but I feel like no developer responds well to the word portal. Like
I put the blame for that firmly at WebLogic portal. I reckon you and I can probably both remember that.
Yeah, but I think if you go through and you make the P stand for platform, now you've got something, right? Like I think that in fact that's really good. That's like a 5-minute like little lightning talk there, Ben, that you've come up with. It's like
I like to use the bouncy castle analogy. The portal is just your way into the bouncy castle, but the platform is the whole thing, right? It's the thing that gives you the fun, right?
Yeah, that's sure. I love it. That's a minute 3 of the 5-minute talk.
I love it. Yeah. So developer platforms are bouncy castles, and then Ticket to Ride.
And then anything, the listeners can go look up the report if you like. We'll throw some free lead gen over to Humanitech there. See how they're doing. But also, there's also a finding that like 51%. So let's just say here's how you can tell if someone's like an advertising or not. Should I say half or over half? But 51% of the people are planning on investing more money in developer productivity and experience stuff. So there's people who actually want to spend money and time to improve it, although it doesn't specify if invest means money or time, but whatever.
Both probably, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think and this they clarify this point around platforms as well, which is one key point that I think differentiates it from a portal, right? So they say here in the report, reducing the bottlenecks caused by ticket ops, right? You don't really get that from a portal.
Yeah.
You can only get that from self-service through having services come to you, be able to just commission them yourself as a developer, not having to raise tickets for, firewalls and all sorts of other things, databases, all that kind of stuff. So it is different, I think. And I like that. I like this report. It's good.
Yeah. So people should check that out. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
But that's what we have this week. That's all.
Well, in that case, on that bombshell, I think it's time to end. Right.
Well, thanks for listening. And if you like this show, it'd be great to to share it with people. Just leave us some comments or whatever you may like. And you can also find links to those two things if you go to tanzutalk.com. And we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.